Thank you so much. Dear shareholders and guests, I would also like to extend a warm welcome to you all to this year's AGM. Even though the online AGMs worked well for 2 years, it is a pleasure to meet in real life here again, and I really felt that during the investor dialogue, which at least some of you attended, hopefully. In a minute, I will tell you about investors' development over the past year and our strategy for the future. But first, I'd like to say a few words about the world around us. In 2021, we saw a recovery in the economy after the worst periods of the pandemic. A global recovery in combination with very low interest rates led to a strong stock market. But inflation started to rise, and we saw significant disruptions to our supply chains around the world caused by a shortage of components. The opening of 2022, however, will unfortunately always be remembered for the unprovoked invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and that war is foremost a major human tragedy, and all of us agree that this is a terrible thing. But we will, in all probability, also have long-term geopolitical and business effects. Some of the challenges that we saw already before the war, such as disruptions in our supply chains, growing inflation, has accelerated even more. And the sharply rising inflation, as we see it now, will force the central banks to increase interest rates by more than they previously thought they would have to. In this very complex and unpredictable world, we continue at Investor to have a very close dialogue with our companies. To future-proof our companies and strengthen our competitiveness is more important now than ever. And at Investor, we have a clear strategic focus that we have been working in accordance with for many years. Our aim is to generate value for people and society by building strong and sustainable companies. Let me have a closer look now at Investor. At the end of the year, our asset amounted to 775 billion krona. Around 2/3 of our assets are our listed companies. Slightly less than 20% is Patricia Industries, which comprises primarily our wholly owned subsidiaries. And then finally, 15% are investments in EQT, comprising both the listed company EQT, but also that we've invested in some of their funds. When it comes to our overarching strategy, it remains in place, but in 2021 we clarified our priorities, such as, for example, that sustainability is a strategic priority that will permeate everything we do. Our overarching target or goal to generate an attractive total return is underpinned by 3 strategic priorities: to increase the net asset value, to generate a steadily increasing dividend, and to reach our sustainability targets. Our operational priorities concern how we will achieve our goals and strategic priorities. And in this regard, we focus on being an engaged owner in our 24 companies to ensure that we have an attractive portfolio for the future, operating in an efficient manner at Investor, and maintaining our financial flexibility. As Jacob touched upon earlier, I will come back to the importance of that for Investor. Let me now briefly go through our development within these priority areas. Let us begin with our overarching goal to generate an attractive total return. The return should exceed our goal of 8 to 9% per year. Last year, we did that by some distance. Our return amounted to as much as 55%. But we need to remember that we were, of course, we benefited strongly from a strong stock market, where the Stockholm exchange went up at 39%. I say that the share price does not always reflect the company's development in the short term, but in the long term, the share price and its trend is a very good measurement of value creation. And in light of that, I think it is good to see that over 5, 10, and 20 years respectively, Investor has exceeded both our profitability requirement and the stock exchange as a whole. As Jacob touched upon, last year we split the shares 4 for 1, which led to our now having more than 500,000 shareholders, and that's something that we're very happy about at Investor. And that's actually almost a threefold increase compared to the number of shareholders 5 years ago. Let me now go through developments in our 3 strategic priorities. Over the last 5 years, up until 2021, our net asset value has increased by an average of 20% per year. When it comes to our strategic priority to generate a steadily increasing dividend, we've managed to increase our dividend each year, with the exception of the pandemic year in 2019. It is gratifying that the board can now, thanks to its strong financial position, can propose a dividend of 4 krona per share, which corresponds to an increase of 14%. In sustainability, we have 3 focus areas to future-proof our companies: business ethics and governance, climate and resource efficiency, and diversity and inclusion. One of our climate goals is that Investor as a company shall achieve net zero emissions by 2030. Another goal is that our aggregate portfolio, our overall portfolio, shall reduce CO2 emissions by 70% by 2030 compared to our baseline year 2016. And these goals are in compliance with the Paris Accords. Let me provide you with some examples of our developments in sustainability. Within business ethics and governance, we have 10 principles that we and our companies must abide by. And again, let me be very clear, we have 0 tolerance to any form of unethical behavior, but that doesn't mean, of course, that it never occurs. But when it does, we have to deal with it and take the requisite measures. Within this field, we can see that 100% of our companies have a whistleblower function, and that 92% of our companies conduct anti-corruption training. When it comes to climate impact, we have seen a positive trend. CO2 emissions for our overall portfolio has been reduced by 49% compared to 2016. And as regards diversity, we can see that the share of women has increased from 30% in 2020 to 34% during last year. So let us move over to our operational priorities, that is, how we reach our ambitions and our goals. Let me begin by talking about our role as engaged owner of our companies. Our companies operate in a variety of industries and face different situations. And based on our ownership model, we always try to do what is right for each individual company. But in our role as owners, we have a number of priority areas. And they are digitalization, innovation, sustainability, to be able to grow through acquisitions, succession planning, talent management, and finally, having the right corporate structure and flexibility in our organization to be able to handle fluctuations.
I would now like to give you a few examples when it comes to our engaged ownership during 2021 and this far in 2022. Atlas Copco has, over the last few years, invested significantly more in research and development to be able to, on a continuous basis, come up with new, better products and services is decisive in order to win market share and have high profitability long term. Within the sustainability area, the objective is that each new product that is being developed should be more environmentally friendly than the previous one. And during the last few years, Atlas Copco has expanded as well forcefully through acquisitions, for example, in areas like vacuum, machine vision, and this year we have seen 2 high-qualitative acquisitions within industrial pumps, which means that there is now a strong platform for continued growth. And these are just a few examples of that development of Atlas Copco. And let me continue with another example, Mölnlycke, our largest wholly owned company. Mölnlycke has developed well over the last many years and today has a net sales of around 17 billion krona and the profit is around 5 billion. In order to strengthen focus even more, the CEO Zlatko Richter has reorganized Mölnlycke into 4 decentralized customer-centric areas: wound care, gloves, operating room solutions, and antiseptics. And in these pictures, you see some of the company products within these areas. This change creates focus, gives full responsibility for those area managers, and creates an even stronger platform for continued growth. One prioritized area is that our strong platform companies should grow through add-on acquisitions within attractive segments that are a good match for our companies. Let me give you a few examples. Sarnova, an American specialist provider of healthcare products, acquired Allied 100, a supplier of defibrillators. Peab, a leading manufacturer within automation, acquired the French Julan, and that strengthens the offering within a number of important segments. And we also have advanced instruments that we discussed earlier during the investor dialogue. Through a number of acquisitions, they have significantly strengthened the position they have within analytical instruments, for example, within the biopharma sector. Let me also touch upon the developments within EQT. Since the listing 2019, EQT has accelerated activities. Activities within credit were divested. They were seen as not significant strategically for the company. In 2021, Exeter and Life Science Partners were acquired, and these 2 acquisitions strengthened the presence within real estate and life science. Beginning of this year, EQT has made public a very big acquisition of Baring Private Equity Asia that will strengthen the position of the company in this important Asian market. In total, EQT, as a matter of fact, has almost tripled the capital, the assets under management, compared to the year before the listing. One important part of our engaged ownership is to continuously work to position our companies so that we can benefit from long-term trends, like, for example, digitalization, automation, electrification, demographies, healthcare, sustainability, and savings. And we do have a good starting position with companies like ABB, Atlas Copco, Peab, that are strong within automation. We have several strong technology companies in our portfolio and also an extensive portfolio within healthcare. And then we have SEB and EQT that benefit from increased savings. But we also invest in new companies. And when we do that, we focus geographically on the Nordics and the United States. And we continuously look for companies that live up to the criteria that we have set. We quite simply want these companies to, number one, be attractive niches, and we also try to find leading companies within such a niche, companies with strong market positions. We're looking for companies with good profitability, good cash flow, sustainability that is integrated into the business model, and also we ensure that these companies have flexibility in activities and also a good corporate culture. So in other words, this list tells us that we prefer to pay a higher price in order to be able to acquire a company that has good opportunities to grow and is already a great company. As a long-term owner, we know that it's important to have those high-quality companies that are led by very talented individuals. However, sometimes we also need to exit certain companies, and that doesn't mean in any way that those companies are doing poorly. It is rather that they do not fit within our strategy, or we feel that we are not the best owner. In 2021, we sold the Grand Hotel, and that is an amazing business, but we have felt that the hotel segment is not appropriate for our future strategy. To conduct operations within Investor and to do that efficiently, that is our third operational priority, and we continuously work with making processes more efficient, working in smarter ways, and try to reduce costs where we can. But at the same time, and this is important to stress, just like the companies that we invest in, they need to invest in research and development, and we need to invest in our organization so that we can fulfill our role as an engaged owner and carry out investments, quite simply conduct a strategy we have decided upon. And our last operational priority is to maintain financial flexibility. We want to have that financial strength so that we can support our companies and so that we can benefit from attractive investment opportunities in difficult times. And today we have a very strong financial position. We have a leverage of only 2%, which feels safe, secure in this uncertain world that we're living in today with the war in Ukraine and interest rates that are rising. One of the investors' strengths when it comes to financial flexibility is our strong cash flow. That gives us a significant flexibility over time. And a good cash flow gives us that opportunity to invest and to pay an increasing dividend to shareholders without having to increase leverage. Over the period 2015 to 2021, we have generated a cash flow or received a cash flow of around 120 billion krona, and that is what you see in this slide. About half of that comes from dividends from listed companies. About 1/3 of that cash flow we get from our subsidiaries, and about 15% we get from EQT. And how have we've been using these 120 billion over this time span, well, about half has been distributed to our shareholders, and just under half of it we have invested in new companies and also in existing companies. And in spite of us having increased the dividend, we have been successful in reducing our leverage with 6 billion krona over this period. And this tells us how important it is to have a strong cash flow. As I mentioned initially, the world is becoming more and more complex, and there's no shortage of challenges. But regardless of global economies and the stock markets, how they will develop, my evaluation is that Investor will remain strong. We have a well-proven governance model. We have a clear strategy. We have a portfolio where we have very, very nice companies with strong market positions. We have a strong financial position. And last but not least, we need to have the right person in the right place. That is decisive. And in my role being the CEO of Investor, I'm lucky because I have that amazing team of co-workers at Investor, and our companies are led by engaged professional individuals, and that is absolutely decisive for our future development. I hope that you feel that you now have an increased understanding of our strategy, how we work. And to conclude, I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to you, all of you shareholders, for the confidence that you've shown in us. And I can just promise you that we will do everything we have with everything we got to continue to have your confidence and to continue to generate an attractive return. Thank you.